that just in case I don't say anything really important. Right? That was so inspirational to hear you all go around and talk about what the words are that you're feeling this morning. Holiday, a lot of people are off, you could have slept in, but you're here. So I am delighted. I know the folks here at 40 Plus are pleased. Networking in any way, shape, or form is the key to your next job. I cannot say that enough. I know some of you don't want to even hear that. You would like to sit at home and send in applications online and have a great job show up at your door. Odds are it's not going to happen that way. Could. There are miracles. But hopefully today I want to give you some ideas about how informational interviews can make a big difference and also be encouraging. A lot of you mentioned the word curious. If you're a curious person, informational interviews are like gold. I will tell you that I am probably one of the most curious people you'll ever encounter. When I was looking for a job years ago, I got so into informational interviews that I had to honestly stop myself. I would have done it forever until I realized I would never make any money asking people questions, unless I was a reporter or something like that. But I just loved learning about people's background. And then I thought, wait a minute, the purpose of this is to lead me to my next job, not create some wonderful new idea in my head, which is probably when I started writing. I had all these great thoughts. But today I want to talk to you about informational interviewing. I am an extremely informal, flexible speaker. If you have a question, don't wait, bring it up. If you disagree with me, I'm fine with that. We'd love to have some dialogue today. So let's just have a good session where we learn from each other. I would imagine you all are going to learn from each other here in this room as much as you'll learn from me, because many of you have had great experiences already. You may not even know that you've done informational interviewing because you never put a name to it or a title to it. So, are you ready to go on a little journey with us here today? To get started, I wanted to use some definitions because to me it always makes sense to have a clue what we're talking about. So these are the definitions I wanted to share with you today. So a definition to me of an informational interview is a meeting where a potential job seeker asks for advice and or information about a particular job or industry, field. This is not a job interview. And I'll probably say that 10 times in the next hour. Could be, sure, but it is not intended for that purpose. If you go into an informational interview and thinking you're going to come out with a job, you'll be disappointed. So think of it as a way to gather information, but also to make a new contact or learn something that you can then use. Oh, by the way, you can have copies of these. You don't have to write everything down or take pictures or whatever. If you want a copy of the slides, let me know, or Greg, and we can get them to you. Okay? I never hand out slides for a lot of reasons, the which is paper. Who needs to do that anymore? But also people read ahead. No matter how many times I say do not, what is your first instinct as a human being? Oh, what's on that last page? Maybe she's going to ask a question. I can figure out the answer. So no, I'm not going to give you the slides ahead of time, but you can have them. So these are the definitions. You also can do informational interviews while you're still working. Some of you are currently employed, are thinking about your next job. What might that be? I loved hearing the background in this room. A variety of things that you all do. We could put together a dynamite company if we could all just want to get together and do that this afternoon and start something.
Sure.
But while you're, good. Somebody's optimistic.
I'm there.
Oh, okay. Two of us will do it. So while you're still working, again, you can do informational interviews. So do these definitions ring true to you? Any questions you would have at this point? I love quotations. I spend a lot of my time as I'm writing looking for the best quote for the beginning of each chapter or whatever, but this is a good one. One important key to success is self-confidence. An important key to self-confidence is preparation. What do you think?
Sure.
I believe that Arthur Ashe was pretty good at both of those things. But I just wanted to share that with you, knowing that any conversation that you have, any informational interview you have, anything, even meeting someone here today, being prepared can make all the difference in the world to your self-confidence. A couple of you mentioned that this is new to you, this whole idea of going out. And what you're doing in a job search, you're selling yourself. It sounds so crass to say it that way, but it is what you're doing. And you have to get used to it. Remember when you were growing up, at least this was true for me, my mother always told us not to brag.
GPS signal lost.
Everybody okay? Not to brag. And this is the time in your life when you have to brag. You have to toot your own horn, you have to sell yourself and all of your skills. The two people that talked today, or three people, about finishing a class and getting a job, they did a great job of telling you who they are and what they can do. And you've got to be able to do that. And you'll do it over and over and over and over. Get comfortable with it. And don't feel embarrassed that you're talking about yourself. Many of us have been taught not to do that. And we're a little uncomfortable talking about ourselves. But this is the time when you have to be able to do it, no matter what your interview situation is. So why do you do informational interviews? Here are some reasons. You want to learn some realities. Maybe you have an idea of a field that you're interested in that you don't really know a whole lot about, but you think there could be something for you. What about if you know what you want, but you're not quite sure how to get there? What steps do you need to take? Some careers are so linear, you just follow along step by step by step. Others are not. Several of you mentioned that you're changing careers. Who's the teacher in the back? Huge career change for 18 years, I think you said, as a teacher, and now wanting to be in public health. Doesn't quite, to most people they would go, huh? And you're gonna have to, I'm sure you already figured this out, you're gonna have to make the connection for them. So one of the ways you can do that is perhaps talk to people that are already in public health and have them see what you already know and what you bring to that field. Teachers can probably do anything. I am in awe of people who teach kids. And I'm really hopeful that as a country, we finally get the idea that teachers need to be, first of all, paid. This is not a political announcement of any kind, but teachers need to be paid a heck of a lot more than they are now and respected for what they do. What is more important? I can't think of anything. Just watched the NBA All-Star game last night. How many billions of dollars were playing on that court? Anyway, I'll get off that. So you want to, another reason to do informational interviews is to expand your network. Your network is everything. Greg mentioned that I worked for Marriott for many years. Marriott's the kind of company where people start frequently as college recruits and they stay there forever. You know, it's a great, wonderful place. Delighted that I worked there. I had a boss who started when he was 22, worked for 23 years, and then, through no fault of his own during an economic downturn, got laid off. Whole department was wiped out. He had no network. He never needed one. And to this day, and I mean this sincerely, he does this. He carries a list of people that he considers to be most important people in his professional network. He has it on a 3x5 card that he carries with him all the time as a reminder of how important those people are. And he says he contacts them at least once every 6 months. He's very methodical. But I'm just reminded of how important your professional network is. And your professional network, you've got a whole bunch of people here that can be part of your professional network. Today, connect, link in together. Don't miss this opportunity. Send me a LinkedIn invitation. I'm happy to do that. And that gives you access to my pretty extensive network. So every opportunity that you have, take it positively. I love the optimistic words that were said here today. That's going to get you through the next, however long it takes. Another reason to do informational interviews, you get some practice talking to people that you don't know, which is typically not a comfortable situation for most people. And also, you can gain information in a more relaxed setting than in perhaps a formal, with a whole group of people where you have to ask questions. One-on-one can be more comfortable. And then I put their fun. The fun for people like me who talk to everybody. I mean, I talk to people in the grocery store. People, my friends say, why do you talk to everyone? Well, because I always learn something, and they're fascinating. Anybody here do that? Fun, right? And you never know. Never know who's standing behind you in that line at Safeway or wherever you shop. So those are some of the reasons to do informational interviews. Who should you do them with? When I work with people in career transition, one of the things I suggest that they do is honestly make a list of everybody that you can think of who might lead you to any sort of job possibility. Sometimes they don't have a whole lot of people. As I mentioned, my friend, former boss who worked for one company, that was his network. He had to really start thinking, oh, I belong to a trade association. I do know people outside of Marriott. But once you start expanding and thinking who you know and who they know, or who they might know, you know where it's going to lead you. Relatives. I remember the first time that I was in job transition, my younger brother, who I think of as my little brother, said that he knew somebody he thought I should talk to. And I thought, who on earth would he know that he's my little brother? Well, he knew a lot of people. And I just had, because I had put him in the little brother box that he was always going to stay in. So think about your relatives. Who do they know? Where do they work? What do they do? It's maybe a time you've never even talked to your second cousin that you only see at weddings or funerals, but that person may know somebody who you would never come in contact with. And you will never find that out unless you open that door. One of the hardest things you do when you're looking for a job is tell people, right? But we need to get past that, because hasn't everybody now in the United States in 2019 at some point been in a job search? If they haven't, they're extraordinarily lucky. Some people have gone through this multiple times. It doesn't get any easier. It might, because you're more comfortable with it. But don't think, oh, I don't want to tell anybody, or I'm embarrassed, or what do they think of me? Odds are they've been through it themselves. They know how you feel, and people want to help other people. Honestly, they do. Did I see a hand over here?
Yeah, I was gonna, a lot of people are hesitant to reach out. Can you give us a couple of tips that will help encourage us to do that? For example, one of the things that keeps me motivated is I look at myself and I say, well, if somebody meets me, I could help them. You know, there's a lot of endless possibilities there. What are some of the things that you recommend people think about in order to encourage them to go out and take that lead?
Can I add just a little tag onto that?
Sure.
Is that first time you contact somebody.
What do you say?
And they may or may not even know who you are.
Well, and you're not in that field,
Yeah.
at all, perhaps. How do you get their attention, make them want to talk to you, explain what you want from them?
We're going to talk about all of those things.
Perfect.
But I'll go back to your point. Can't remember your name over here. White shirt man. What was your name?
Oh, John.
John. Easy one to remember. I should get that one. Back to how do you just get comfortable doing this? Again, it's that first time is always the hardest. Give it a try. Realize that honestly, most people really do want to be helpful if you give them an opportunity. So I would just say something like, I don't know if you've heard the news, but my job was eliminated at XYZ, and I'm looking for something new in the area of. One sentence, and if they don't pick up and say, oh gosh, I'm really sorry, let me see what I can do to help you, maybe then you don't continue with it, maybe you just let it go. But most people will say, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, that happened to me 2 years ago. Let me give it some thought. I might know somebody. Right here in this, right, Paula, you may know somebody that you were going to connect somebody with one couple of words. You picked up on something that somebody you might connect to. So I think you just have to do it. And I realize that that's hard for, how many introverts do we have in our room today? Probably a fair number. Yeah, it's hard.
But the more you do it, the
The easier it gets. And in most cases, you're going to get something positive back. If you don't, you move on. Don't let it discourage you. Don't, the first person you talk to that morning doesn't help you out. Don't go back and put the covers over your head. Just keep trying.
I would just add to that, because I have a pretty big network and I send out a lot, and people really do want to help, but you have to be very specific
Very
in what you're
specific.
asking them
Thank
to
you.
do. Because if you think they're going to do the work, they are not. I mean, nobody is going to ram the square peg into the round hole. So I think you've got to say, hey, happy new, whatever, you may not have heard the news, I'm on the job search, and this is what I'm looking to do. I want this industry, I'm looking for this kind of, experience or job, and then here's a little bit about me. And you sell yourself on what your attributes are. And it's not too long, it's tight and really to the point, but I get emails like that all the time too, and it's just, you want to help, but it's got to be a slam dunk for somebody. So I just would add to be very
Excellent point.
specific.
Be very specific. And we'll
Does
talk about
that-
this. Go ahead.
Does that imply that you're looking for a job when you ask it that way?
Well, informational interviews, you're not going to ask for a job.
Well, I know, but it sounded like that could imply that you're.
No, I don't, well, you're not asking for a job, you're asking for a, who do you know?
Contacts.
Who could you put me in touch with? Everybody you talk to, you at least want to get one person that they can lead you to. If you can do that, your network will grow exponentially. But informational interviews is not the time for you to say, and do you have a job here that I might have?
Right.
No. So, LinkedIn, greatest thing ever for all of us in terms of, I know people who just cannot network one-on-one. First of all, many people are if you're working, or have a family and lots of activities and whatever, going to events is not comfortable. LinkedIn is a way to do this without face to face to face. Does that take the place of networking face to face? No, but it's a great way to get started. So if you're not using LinkedIn, I'm sure you have programs here on how to use LinkedIn. Great, wonderful tool. I was just saying to Paul this morning, I who preach this all the time just realized over the weekend my profile was out of date. My last couple of books are not on my profile. The things that, here I am teaching this, and so that's what I'll be doing this afternoon. So, Paula just mentioned, have specific questions. Set a time limit and stick to it. Research the organization and the person that you're going to be meeting with before you go to meet with them. Business cards. I know a lot of people that are in job search don't have business cards. I think you need them. I don't know what how y'all feel, but you can get them. Vistaprint, $500 for $10 or whatever. Staples. They're not expensive, but it's nice to have something to leave behind. Especially people, business people in particular, may ask you for a business card. And if you don't have one, what do you do? So I'm not, believe me, I'm not selling business cards on the side here. I'm just suggesting that you might want to get a business card to have. It's also a good, one of the things that I use business cards for when I meet somebody is to make a quick note on the back what they're looking for. It's a really easy way for me to follow up with that person. I know that they're looking for healthcare policy work or whatever it is, so that I can, if I come across somebody, I can connect them. Yeah.
What do you put on there though? Because I'm not an analyst or a person in what I want. So what do you put on for your?
What you put on what you want. I believe I would put on what I'm looking for.
Okay.
With your contact information. Good email address. If your email address is some cutesy, non-professional thing, get a Gmail address or something that's more professional. There are people that make very quick decisions about whether or not somebody's a good candidate for a job based on things like they have their children's names. On their picture on LinkedIn is their dog. Well, love your dog, but be professional. Think it through. So, I'm not usually a negative person, but I want to talk a few minutes before we get into the real nitty-gritty of this about what not to do. Sometimes what not to do is as important as what to do. Always have your resume when you go for an informational interview, but don't hand it out unless you're asked for it. And the reason for that is this is not a job interview. You don't want to make it into a job interview. But if the person, and frequently they will in an informational interview, say, can I have a copy of your resume? You may have already sent it to them, a soft copy, great, but have a hard copy with you. Yeah.
Another reason not to give it to them is you might learn something during the information
Excellent.
interview that you'll want to make modifications before you distribute your resume to them.
Mm-hmm.
Great point, John, thank you. Yes.
Before I learned any of this last year, I had 200 book informational interviews with the friends of my brother, and I gave them my resume just to look at while we were talking because I'm a complete transitioning career person. So they looked at it and kind of say, oh, okay, I can see this and this could work here. So that was helpful in that way, but I didn't even keep it. I don't know, would you consider that
No,
appropriate
it's
at all?
fine if it was used positively, if they could see something on there that maybe fit their company. That's
Well, I mean, the field is what I feel.
hard to know. If I'm telling you not to do something, do what feels right for you. In that case, that worked out well for you. So you had it with you, and probably they would have said, do you have a copy of your resume?
Yeah, well, I asked them first, I just kind of asked them.
Excellent. Okay, so you didn't just walk in, shove it, and then across the desk. You said, can I give you a copy of my resume?
Yeah, well, just to look at, yeah, not to
Did they make comments right there and hand it right back?
Yeah, we just talked about it, just saw my information, just kind of, not about my resume, just so they knew me a little bit better. You could see what I've done, if anything could fit into my new field. So we just kind of talked about what was on it, not like, was it a good resume or not, or just kind
You
of.
could also get someone to critique your resume if you wanted that. I suppose if that was somebody you felt comfortable in doing that. But yeah, that was a good use of your resume. Also, if you'd sent it to them ahead of time, they may have done that, but I find most people don't. Take a look at, they're busy, these are busy people. Which is why we're going to talk about time limits. Busy people will not give you a long period of time. I always ask for 20 minutes. And inevitably, you're there much longer. Because most people, once you get into the conversation, if you've structured it properly and you have good questions prepared, they're going to get into this with you. And almost always, I have found, I'll say, thank you, our 20 minutes are up. I want to honor the fact that I asked you for 20 minutes. I know you're busy. And they'll go, oh, no, let's just keep going. This is interesting. For one reason, people love to talk about themselves. And you're going to be asking them questions about themselves. And sometimes they really get into that, and you're going to learn a tremendous amount if you just let them talk and you listen. And then you want to make sure that you've got time for you to tell your story. So don't forget to ask for other referrals. Don't leave without saying, is there anybody else you think I might talk to? And almost always they'll say, oh, I had coffee with my friend Stan last week, and I think he's got something going at his company. I don't have his contact information here, but follow up with me in a couple of days and I'll get it for you. And don't forget to follow up. Big mistake a lot of people make after informational interviews is not following up. I would bet that I've done thousands of these. I even belong to if any of you are Northern Virginia people, there's a wonderful place, it's in Vienna, called the Women's Center. And they have a formal program called the I CAN program. I'm not sure it's still going on, but check it out if you're interested, where they do formal informational interviewing, connecting. I volunteered there for years to do at least 5 informational interviews a year. And I met some of the most interesting people. In fact, I got a job through somebody that I met through that program who referred me to Human Genome Sciences. So you never know. But of the thousands of people that I've done informational interviews with, I would bet less than 50 have ever followed up with me to tell me what happened to them. Which I would love to know. First of all, for part of my network, yes.
So are you saying beyond it was nice to meet you the other day, thank you so much for your time, you're suggesting that once you find a job, you should let them know?
Absolutely. Okay. For one thing, that's when you really want to thank them, even if their interview didn't lead to something, but they helped you. And then people want to know what happened. Just the idea that these good people, which I'm sure everybody in your network is going to be a good person, really want to help and take that next step. So yes, I think letting them know.
And then you maintain that connection.
Absolutely, they become part of your network.
Yeah, maybe you're doing something that they say, oh, well, now that you're going to have that skill.
And you can do something for them.
Yeah.
You all could do this program. Thank you. Perfect. Yes. So, of course, always saying thank you. Just profusely thank people who give up their precious time for you. So 20 to 30 minutes. Some people, if they agree to do an interview, you can say, would you like me to send my questions ahead of time? Somebody who's a really, really deep introvert, that might be very comforting for them to know what you're going to ask. I'm sorry, ladies, you can't see back there?
Just the lower ones, I was just looking at the lower.
Why don't you move up to the front? I know. Stay on schedule, research before you go. Know as much as you can about their organization. Yeah, did you have a question?
Oh, I just have a question.
Sure.
Suppose you're doing an informational interview, and the person thinks that you're looking for a job in that particular place. Is it appropriate to say, no, I'm not looking for a job here, I'm looking for jobs in another company?
Absolutely.
Is that like a slap in the face to the person,
No.
or is that inappropriate?
That's appropriate. I would say, I'm really interested in the field. I'd like to know more about it. I am in the job market. I'm looking for a new position, but I'm not here to ask you for a job.
Okay.
Now, it may come to that. Yeah, it's wonderful when that happens, and it does happen. But if you go into it thinking that an informational interview is when you go and ask somebody for a job, it'll come back to slap you right in the face. Question back there? Yes.
Yeah, I conducted an informational interview a few weeks ago where I knew the organization was hiring for the positions that I'm interested in looking for. However, I went into it because I basically wanted to learn more about the organization. There were some aspects about the organization that I just didn't know, and curious to know before even applying whether it's the right fit for me as well. But unfortunately, the informational interview turned that. I don't want to say unfortunately, but basically, I asked questions about the company, but more so, they asked a lot more questions about me, which was fine, but we had limited amount of time, and I didn't get the questions that I had about the company answered.
That's interesting. So they saw you as a candidate for the position.
I don't know.
They must have. If
I mean,
wanted-
they looked at my LinkedIn profile. They knew about my background prior to meeting in person. So
I think I would have, it's easy for me to say, but I would have maybe said something like, after they've asked their questions, say, I've got a few questions about your organization. Do you have a few more minutes that I could ask you those questions? And just be upfront about the fact that you were there to learn about the culture, you were there to learn about their field.
mm-hmm.
And if they said, gosh, no, our time is up, I'm going to say something that I know in the job market is hard to hear. Sometimes you learn something about that organization that lets you know that that's not where you want to work. And that's hard, no? I'm sure you all are well aware that culture now is so critical. You all want to work somewhere where your skills are certainly being utilized, but also where you're comfortable, you're valued. Paul and I have been working together for a while, and he's heard me use the word value. Are you feeling valued? Over and over, because that to me is one of the keys to this whole process. No matter how exciting the job is, how great the company is, if you don't feel valued going to work every day, and I'm not talking particularly about how much you're paid, although that's important, but are your contributions valued? And if somebody that doesn't, like in your case, where they took it up in a totally different direction,
Yeah.
that would be a red flag for me. No, I wouldn't just write them off at that moment. I'd do some more. But you want to, both sides here.
Would you
John?
be flattered that they were interested in you?
I mean, I was definitely flattered, but my basic questions were not answered. I wanted to know about their business model because I didn't quite fully understand it. And there's no point in me going to work for a company if I don't understand their business model and they're not willing to explain it to me.
What about sending them a follow-up email that says, I've got a few more questions, could I just put them in writing? Maybe they would do that. Or LinkedIn, find somebody that already works there, that's your greatest thing ever is when you get somebody who really goes to work there every day, they can tell you, oh, this is not a place that you want to be. Anything else? Place and time of their choice. Sometimes people want to meet you outside the office. Make that an option. Could I buy you a cup of coffee at the local Starbucks. Or if they say, you know, I've got a really busy schedule, can you come here? And of course the answer is yes, we can.
I was told to try to get them out of the office because if they're in their office, they might be distracted by the phone and email and other things.
Of course, however, as an ideal, I absolutely agree with you, but reality in today's busy world, hard to do. But make the offer. Yeah. And you certainly, there are phones, you can do informational interviews over the phone. Of course you can. But there's nothing like face-to-face. And that's why technology allows us now with Zoom and Skype and all the other wonderful things we have at our fingertips, that it's better than just a voice to do something on video. So, here's a script that I'm just offering you here as some place to start. And you want to think about this before you go in. How are you going to start? So what I'm saying is, thanks for meeting me. Barbara told me to suggested I talk with you to learn more about your background and your organization. I know you've worked here for 12 years, and this profession really interests me. I'd be grateful if you'd share some information about the field, your job. I have 5 questions, and I promise to keep to our 20-minute commitment. Quick, probably less than a minute, but you've set the tone. They know why you're there. I don't know about you, but I have done things like this where I walk in and the person doesn't even remember why you're there because they have 17 meetings today and all they care about is, what am I doing for lunch? I don't know. So being upfront, reminding them why you're there, what you want to talk about, and maybe you've already sent your questions. Here's some things you might want to think about. How did you get into this field? Again, I mentioned this earlier. People love to tell their story. They may not think they do, but once they get started, I find sometimes you can't shut them up. They want to go through far more detail than you need, but let them talk. You'll learn something. Why did they pick this organization? Field is one thing. Maybe that this is something that they've thought about their whole lives. Why did they join this organization? And that's where you'll learn maybe some cultural information. I joined this company because I had heard that they really were an organization that promoted from within. And I knew that I wanted to stay in one place if I could and work through an organization. Right there, you've learned a whole bunch of information. It's a company that promotes from within. It's a place where they want people to stay. You know, there are organizations that really want to churn and others that are more comfortable in you staying for a while. So tell me about a project you're working on. Or one of the greatest questions ever, I'll tell you a quick story. One of the great questions is, what keeps you up at night? Now, I asked this question once in a consulting role, a very senior level person in a major hospital chain somewhere in the world. And this person said to me, absolutely nothing keeps me up. I sleep like a baby. I have no concern. Okay, so I think I'll ask it a different way. On your way to work in the morning, what are you thinking about? Honest, he said, can you look out that window right over there? You see those townhouses that are right there? I walk from there to here. I don't think about anything. I'm thinking about at this moment I thought, okay, this is going to be tough. I tried twice. I did not try a third time. I couldn't think of one more thing to say. Other than, lucky you. But ask people what they're working on, What's a day look like? I love asking people, what's a typical day? Because, of course, they're all going to say there is no typical day. And then you start getting those stories. Is this field a growing field? And you don't want to go to work for something that's going to close up next month. And would my background fit? That is a perfectly legitimate question to ask that you may think is too close to, I want a job here, but you're not asking for a job. You're just saying, what you know about me, do you think my background would fit? Okay, lady behind you first, and then you, John.
One way I sometimes phrase that is to ask, like, what attributes make people successful in their organization or in their field. Because if they tell you that, then you can tailor what you're saying about yourself to meet that.
Sure.
I think that's
What makes people successful here? Tell me about somebody who is one of your superstars, not by name. What was their background? How did they get here? So you're going to need to have your questions ready ahead of time and have a few more than you think you need. Ask them what they like about their job. And you don't ask what do you like about your job, but what do you find most satisfying? What are your challenges? Is there a demand for people in this field? You probably will already know that before you go in, but it's fun to ask that question. What professional journals should I be reading if I'm interested in this field? What organization should I belong to? Are there networking groups that I might participate in? And then the best question ever, 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 ever. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think would be good for me to know? I ask that question of anybody I ever interview as well. I give them a chance to tell me, summarize their background. Great chance for you to sell yourself. But in this case, you're giving them an opportunity to just open and let you know what they want you to know. So then, you better be prepared to talk about yourself. It may happen at the beginning, it may happen, if you're in control, which I hope you are, that you start out with your questions. A good informational interview is going to be both sides here. And I'm sorry it didn't work out for...
I did. I started out with questions, but he
I
asked
mean,
me one or two.
you didn't get a chance to talk about yourself. Or ask your questions, I'm sorry.
I did. I asked one or two questions, and then it quickly turned tail.
So be prepared to talk about your skills, your abilities, your experience, your strengths, your plans. What are you looking for? Wonderful opportunity. Gold. Tell your story. Have your stories ready to go. Stories are not once upon a time. They are stories that share, they're examples that share how good you are at the specific things that you want to do more of. An example of when you did something that had an impact in your organization. Whatever strength that you want to sell. So I'm going to just give you some details here, and in a few more minutes we'll do a little practice here. Be on time, but don't be too early. You heard about this? As a longtime HR person who's interviewed thousands of people, if the interview is for 10 o'clock, don't get there before 10 to 10. If you get there early, of course you want to scope it out, know where the building is. But if you're too early, it may throw that person's whole day off. And they'll be a little annoyed that you got there at 9:30 because then they have to push their 9:30 meeting. Or they have to leave you sitting in the lobby for half an hour. 10 minutes is a good, and that goes for any kind of interview. You get there early, sit in the coffee shop downstairs or whatever. Dress as if you're going for a job interview. Even if you know that they are a very casual place, you always want to be a little bit more dressed up. Be prepared, stay focused, honor the time commitment, ask for their business card so you could follow up, and then you have one of your own. And then leave a resume if you're asked for one. When you're leaving, the last thing you want to do is be prepared for the ask. Sales, nothing more important than being able to not miss an opportunity to get the ask. Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Just about a business card, if one is not employed, it's just the name, the address, the, email address and telephone, that's it.
Or you could put, looking for my next opportunity in.
Okay.
Or some people put a little mini resume on the back with their skills. So it can be whatever you want it to be, but minimum you want to have your name, you don't need your street address, you need your
Phone number.
email, phone, yeah. Yes.
I've also heard people suggest putting your LinkedIn.
Oh, good point. Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you're a Twitter person, anything that, one of the things that is great in our social media world now is using things like Twitter and LinkedIn to get noticed. And so if they can want to follow you on Twitter or whatever, that could be a good thing. Unless you're tweeting about stuff that you don't think will help you get a job. We don't want to go there. So you want to make your ask as specific as possible. I'd be most appreciative if you could point me in the direction of other people you might know who could help me as I continue to gather information about this field. That's as non-threatening as possible, I think. The field, the industry, the job, the organization. But don't miss the opportunity to leave you want to leave it with at least one name. There are people that tell you you should ask for 3, and you're like, I'm going to sit there till you give me 3 names? No. And if they say, I just really can't think of anybody, then obviously you're as polite as you possibly can be. You might say, would it be okay if I followed up with you in a couple of weeks? Feel it. You're going to have to feel this out yourself. There's no hard and fast rule about that. And if they don't have anything for you, anybody else to suggest, then you graciously thank them and you move on. And you've learned something. First, remember one of the things I said that you gain from this is some great practice telling your story. You gain some confidence. If you're watching a person's eyes as you give an example of something that you are really proud of, and they're drifting off into la-la land, you're probably going on too long. You learned something. Shorten your stories. Make your stories, make your examples quick but impactful. Don't forget to, I'm a note taker. If you are, do it. It's comfortable for you. If you're not, don't. But write down some notes as soon as you leave, because you don't want to lose sight of all that good information. Get a card, give a card, have your resume of past, and always, even though you are the job seeker, in any network situation, ask, is there anything that I can do for you? Always do that. In any network today, as you meet people. That's just being a good human being. But it also says that this is a mutual experience. Follow up, keep in touch, and then I mentioned this earlier, let them know when you get a job. I mean, maybe not everybody is like me, but I really do appreciate knowing. Yes?
I was just going back how to take the notes.
Uh-huh.
I did a lot of writing, and then recently, the past year, especially through my transition, take audio notes, just talk to myself.
Yeah.
On an iPhone, or I have a little recorder.
No, you don't do that. You don't record them.
No.
Okay, good.
No, stepping out, thinking about what happened, walking walking around the neighborhood.
As you're in the elevator moving, you just,
Before
yeah.
I forget. Yes.
Okay. I just didn't want the FBI coming.
Oh, no.
This is Washington, you know. So, yeah, whatever's comfortable for you. And hopefully you've learned something that is worth following up on. So email, handwritten note, I'm sure you've heard this, that how much mail do you get personally anymore? Virtually none, right? I mean, it's so rare that you get something. So a handwritten note can really stand out. However, only if you have handwriting that people can read. So email's fine, but a handwritten note can be just a little bit more impactful, especially if they've given you a lot of extra time. Yes?
Do you mail the handwritten note, or do you deliver it to the office?
I would mail it. I think delivering it to the office seems a little stalkerish to me. That's just me. Now, if it's in your neighborhood and you're walking by, fine. But I think in the mail's appropriate. Yeah.
Email is more immediate, just because like if I send a handwritten note, they might not even get it till the following week, and by that point they're knee deep in something else and forgot who I was. So is it overdoing it to email them and say just a quick note to thank you for your time yesterday, and then follow up with a handwritten note? Or
That would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes?
Following up what she said in your email, instead of like CC somebody, could you write a handwritten or note, letter via USPS to follow?
You could, although it seems a little formal to me, but in an email, but I don't know how the rest of, how would you react if you got something like that? Probably don't even read that far down. But if it's comfortable for you, do it. And again, you want to have, if you do an email or a handwritten note, a couple of paragraphs, this is not a time to write everything that we talked about. Best thing to do is to, if you're really interested in a job in that organization, and this is where I'm going to go against my own advice, that you would put in your email or your handwritten note, as I was thinking after we left, I have some skills that might fit your organization. Just wanted to let you know that I'm going to apply through your normal application process. So you've given them a heads up. They may follow up, they may not. Nothing wrong with that. Yes?
I'm interested about what you say about send articles.
Yeah. I love the idea of if you are meeting with someone in a field that you're learning about, you're going into, and then you see something in Business Week or Forbes or some trade publication, send an email to that person with a link saying, saw this, made me think of you. You probably had already seen it, but just wanted to let you know I was thinking of you, something like that. It's a way to keep in front of them, a way to keep that network going. And also lets them know you are a serious business person. Make sense? Okay. So, I think we've already covered all of this. Being unprepared is a mistake. Asking inappropriate questions. Spending all your time talking about yourself, because you're really there to talk about or from them. Being ungrateful, being too early or too late. Never be late, we all know that one, right? And then asking for a job. So in the next 5 minutes here, let me just do some practice. Give this a try. Do an ask. Find somebody here and practice how you would ask for an informational interview. And then switch roles and try it again. Yes?
Can I just ask you a question
Sure.
before? What level of person would you suggest? Would you suggest to talk to your peers? Would you who might be a peer? Would you suggest talking to a level above, a manager? Both?
Impossible for me to answer that question. I think it depends, which is one of those horrible answers. I'd go as high as you can in the organization to get the most general information. But if you really are interested in something very specific, then someone who already holds that job could be interesting. But in most cases, I would think you'd be wanting to talk to someone who could give you the overview of the organization, who may be director level or above. Get to talk to the CEO or the executive director. Terrific. Yes, who had their hand up? Yeah.
So one other question, I don't know if we'll have other time, but how do you, to get the informational interview, what if you don't hear back from somebody when you give them a generic thing? Should you try to come up with something that would make it more interesting when you send it out, or how many times can you follow up with them?
For an informational interview, I would not go more than once, and I know that's hard to hear, because if they don't follow up or don't say yes, it probably means that they either don't have time or this is not just something that they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you need something in that organization, then use your LinkedIn contacts, see who else. See if you can find somebody you already know who works there. Wonderful way to do it. Yes?
Does your answer about going back more than once change if someone has suggested you contact this person, so you have kind of a name that you're using?
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you've got a warm introduction, that maybe you could try twice. And put some time in between. You know, they may be, how do you know? They may be having a merger going on that is totally secret from the FCC or whatever. So, give it a try. And maybe it's in 6 months, if you haven't heard and you're still looking, try it again. Yes?
Yeah, just clarify, because that actually happened recently where I sent an email to a contact for informational interview, then she replied, but and said, okay, we're going to have the interview the following day, but it didn't pan out. I didn't get any response. I followed up, but I haven't heard anything. So after this point, just, I mean, I've checked other options, but, you know, that was very weird. That was the first time it ever happened where I got a response, and a date, but nothing happened.
If you got a response and a date, I would try again.
Okay.
Something probably happened, maybe out of their control.
Okay.
I'd give it one more try.
Okay. All right.
People, we were just talking about this earlier, about people who make a specific appointment and then, as it's happened to you, or they call you or email you and say, I know we were supposed to talk tomorrow, but something's come up, I'll get back to you with another date, and then you don't hear from them? How frustrating is that? Follow up. Yeah.
How have you kept track of the information with a tool or something?
I always suggest that whatever is comfortable for you. Some people use an Excel spreadsheet with every contact that they make. Whatever works for you, but I would find a way to track it so that if you get a call back,
right,
you know where it came from and who referred you to that person. So something, I don't know of any. There may be somebody who's come up with an informational interview tracking device. Maybe one of you can.
Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I would use in
Jibber
Excel.
jabber. It's jibber jabber. It's something you can download or you access online, but you can organize all your job hunting stuff.
Good idea.
Including information.
Good idea. All right, let's do a quick couple of minutes and give it a try here. Do you want me to go back to some questions? The script that I gave you, was that
But I will call you back.
All my life, and I really just sort of fell into it from following my interests Well, it's been a very good match. I have really enjoyed working with them, and they seem to be very pleased. My performance seems always something I have to do something new. I feel very lucky to be here. Preordained crisis of the day that whether it's subject matter or resources. So it's really trying to keep the hottest iron hitting your head and making sure that you're not just doing urgent for someone else's emergency, somebody else that works.
Okay, how about the other? We'll give it a try. All right, well, I've got a quote up here that I think kind of crystallizes what we've been talking about. Believe in yourself, have faith in your abilities. Without a humble but reasonable confidence in your own powers, you cannot be successful or happy. So, it's all in you, right? Build up your confidence, practice. Make your spouse, your significant other, your dog, whoever, listen to your stories, just so you get comfortable in saying them out loud. Preparation is the key. Thanks so much for this. As I said, you can get the slides. And I do have one of the latest new book is the Manager's Answer book. This is a fun book to write. My co-author and I made up the questions and answered them. No, we really took real questions. But I want to give a couple of these away. Who's got the closest birthday to today? February birthday? Anybody? Ron? And you? What day? What did you say? February birthday?
Do I have a February birthday?
January 29th. January 29th. Ron, when is it?
February 10th.
I think you did. And who's the other one? January 29th. Okay. There you go. All right, and thanks for participating today. I've had a great time with you. And if anybody wants a card, I'm happy to give them out. Unfortunately, I have to leave for another appointment, so I can't stay around too long, but feel free to contact me. I'm happy to take personal questions or help you in any way. We're all in this together. Yes.
I'll look for the email.
All right, Fanny, you have to give me this card, or I'll give you my email address and you can contact me. I'll write it down here. We go.
There it is.
Okay, thanks very much.
I can't wait.